December 24, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia. Deep in the night, the Sodder family home erupts into flames. 9 of George and Jenny Sodder's children went to sleep in that house. Only 4 made it out alive with their parents. When the ashes finally cooled and investigators searched the rubble, they expected a grim recovery. Instead, they found absolutely nothing. No bones, no teeth, not a single trace of the 5 missing children. Forensic science suggests that even in a fast-burning fire, 5 human bodies cannot simply vanish. In a house of this size, something, a bone fragment, a tooth, a piece of clothing, should have remained. Despite the missing evidence, the local fire chief delivered a rapid ruling. He declared the 5 children had died in the blaze, their bodies entirely cremated by the fire. This chart shows the thermal output of a standard house fire compared to the threshold required for human cremation. A typical fast-burning wood house fire maxes out around 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. To completely obliterate human bone, you need temperatures exceeding 1800. We can see here on the timeline that the Sodder house collapsed in under an hour. Cremation requires those extreme temperatures to be maintained for at least 2 to 3 hours. Even in the most intense fatal fires, forensic teams recover biological fragments. The math proves the children did not burn. If they didn't burn, they had to have been removed from the house before the roof collapsed. The fire was a distraction. George Sodder was an Italian immigrant who frequently made public anti-fascist remarks regarding Benito Mussolini. In 1940s West Virginia, this drew dangerous attention. Months before the fire, a visiting life insurance salesman argued with George. As he left the property, he promised George that his house would burn and his children would be destroyed. Just weeks later, a stranger was caught on the property, quietly tampering with the house's electrical wiring. The chronological alignment of these threats suggests a deliberate pattern of escalation, rather than a series of coincidences. At 12:30 a.m. on December 24th, the phone rang. Jenny Sodder answered, only to hear an unfamiliar woman's voice asking for a stranger, followed by odd laughter. She hung up and went back to bed. 30 minutes later, the house was ablaze. George woke up and rushed for the internal staircase, only to find it completely blocked by a wall of fire. He ran outside to attempt a rescue from the windows. His heavy exterior rescue ladder was missing from its usual spot against the house. Investigators later found it hidden at the bottom of a nearby embankment. Desperate, George sprinted to his commercial coal trucks, intending to use them as a makeshift platform to reach the second floor. Both engines were entirely dead, despite running perfectly just hours prior. Inside, Jenny tried to call the operator to get the fire department. The phone lines were dead. The fire didn't melt those lines. A repair crew later confirmed the wires had been cleanly severed from the pole with pliers. Severed communications, disabled escape vehicles, and a stolen ladder. This was a perfectly executed, calculated trap. George and Jenny Sodder spent the next 4 decades refusing to accept the official ruling. They devoted their entire lives to searching for the children they knew had been taken from them. They erected a massive billboard along Route 16 in West Virginia. For over 30 years, it stood on the side of the highway, publicly challenging the authorities with a single question: what was the fate of our children? In 1968, an unmarked envelope arrived from Kentucky. Inside was a portrait of a young man in his 30s, bearing a striking resemblance to what Louis Sodder would have looked like 2 decades after the fire. On the back was a handwritten note using the boy's name. The family hired a private investigator to travel to Kentucky and trace the photograph to its source. Upon arriving, that investigator vanished without a trace. George and Jenny Sodder went to their graves convinced their children were victims of a coordinated abduction. Decades later, the empty foundation in Fayetteville remains a testament to a story without a final chapter. Tell me what you think happened to the 5 children in the comments below, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most haunting mysteries.